before that night of miracles, Barcelona was anything but magical.
It's one of the bleakest nights that Barcelona have endured.
Barcelona was the team that had once danced its way into football immortality, but now they were stumbling through a storm they couldn't control. The team that once ruled Europe with poetry and precision was slowly, painfully, and publicly falling apart. Pep Guardiola's tiki-taka orchestra had long fallen silent. Xavi was gone, Dani Alves had left, Iniesta was aging, and the golden generation that once terrified Europe looks tired, like warriors still fighting, but without a cause. Luis Enrique was supposed to be the bridge between eras. The man who led Barca to a treble in 2015 now found himself drowning in expectation. Every press conference was a war zone, every lineup a statement, every defeat a headline. The same journalists who once called him a genius were now calling for his resignation. His tactics were being picked apart. His relationship with Messi was questioned. Rumours leaked of shouting matches behind closed doors, of players confused by new systems, of fatigue creeping in after years of dominance. Even the MSN, Messi, Suarez, and Neymar no longer looked invincible. They still scored, yes, they still dazzled games occasionally, but something intangible had vanished. They no longer had that perfect chemistry that made defenders crumble before the ball even reached them. Even Neymar was forced to adapt his natural game to fit the new philosophy. By February 2017, Barcelona was second in La Liga, already out of the Copa del Rey and clinging to a fading identity. For the first time in nearly a decade, the fear was gone. Opponents didn't step into the Camp Nou trembling anymore. They smelled weakness and they pounced on it. Meanwhile, 800 kilometers away in Paris, a revolution was quietly assembling its arsenal. Paris Saint-Germain, backed by Qatari billions, fueled by revenge and obsessed with respect, were hunting for legitimacy. Unai Emery, their meticulous and fiery manager, had crafted a machine built for one purpose: to finally slay Barcelona. Ángel Di Maria, the fallen Real Madrid star, wanted payback for all the El Clásicos lost. Edinson Cavani, long in Zlatan's shadow, was ready to step into his own light. Verratti and Draxler, young, fearless, untamed, brought the hunger Barcelona had lost. The timing was cruelly poetic. As Barcelona searched for itself, PSG found purpose. As one empire faded, another prepared its coronation. The Spanish media felt it in the air. La ira se apaga, El País wrote. The era is fading. Fans on radio shows wept as if mourning a death. It wasn't just about form, it was about identity. The team that had once taught the world how to play football now looked like it was learning the game all over again. And deep down, even the players knew it. And so, when the Champions League anthem played on a cold February night in Paris, Barcelona weren't just walking into the stadium, they were walking into judgment. Because in 90 minutes, the world would see what happens when the gods of football finally bleed. It was Valentine's Day, 2017, but in Paris, there was no love, only vengeance. The Parc des Princes glowed under the floodlights, alive with noise and fury. PSG fans held banners that read "Revenge is ours." For 5 straight seasons, Barcelona had humiliated them. Neymar's flicks, Messi's magic, those impossible comebacks. But this night, Unai Emery's men weren't here to admire them, they were here to end them. From the first whistle, you could feel it. Barcelona weren't ready. Not emotionally, not physically, not tactically. Luis Enrique had gone with his trusted 4-3-3, hoping muscle memory would save them. But PSG had studied every movement, every blind spot. Marco Verratti and Adrien Rabiot swarmed the midfield like hornets, pressing Busquets into panic. Messi couldn't breathe, Neymar was isolated, and Suarez was stranded, waving for passes that never came. It took just 18 minutes for the first dagger. Ángel Di Maria curled a free kick past Ter Stegen with a beauty so cruel it almost felt personal. 1-0. The stadium erupted. Di Maria didn't smile. He screamed. Years of frustration poured into that one strike. Then came Julian Draxler, the winter signing who'd been in Paris barely a month, tore down the right, left Jordi Alba chasing shadows, and buried PSG's second before half-time. 2-0. In the stands, the camera found Neymar, frozen, blank, disbelieving. Barcelona were collapsing in real time. Iniesta misplaced passes. Piqué argued with the referee. Even Messi, the one constant in every storm, looked lost in the chaos. Luis Enrique stood motionless on the sideline, his face pale. This wasn't just a bad night, it was a dissection of everything he stood for. But PSG weren't finished. Early in the second half, Di Maria struck again, another curling masterpiece. 3-0. The crowd howled. They could sense it now. The era of Barcelona was coming to an end right before their eyes. By the time Edinson Cavani made it 4-0, the noise inside the Parc des Princes was biblical. The cameras caught Messi standing near the halfway line, head bowed, hands on his knees, not injured, not exhausted, just empty. The post-match numbers were humiliating. PSG had outran, outshot, and outpassed Barcelona. 25 attempts to Barcelona's 6. They'd been dismantled, not by luck, but by design. In the press room, Luis Enrique took the blame. "We were inferior," he said. "They were better in every way." But the headlines were merciless. The end of an era, Barcelona exposed. Messi can't save them. Back in Spain, the mood was funereal. On talk shows, pundits called it the worst night in the club's history. Even Barcelona's own fans booed their team bus upon return. In the locker room, silence hung heavier than defeat. No shouting, no excuses, just shock. And somewhere between disbelief and despair, a spark flickered. Neymar, drenched in sweat and humiliation, muttered to a teammate, "If they can score 4, we can score 6. It sounded ridiculous, a whisper in a room full of ghosts. But football doesn't bow to logic, and in the weeks that followed, those words would grow from a whisper into a prophecy, because Barcelona were not done. Not yet. When the dust settled in Paris, even Barcelona's most loyal fans had given up. A 4-0 defeat in the Champions League knockout stage wasn't just a loss for the iconic Barcelona, it was a death sentence. They had the best player in the world, the most talented Brazilian in the world, and arguably the best striker of his generation. A 4-0 loss was just humiliating, no matter how you put it. To make it worse, no team in the history of the competition had ever overturned such a deficit. The math said it was impossible. Barcelona had only a 0.3% statistical chance of qualification. The betting odds were a 25/1 probability against Barcelona. The bookmakers said it was fantasy, and the headlines said what everyone else was thinking: Barcelona are finished. For weeks, the narrative was written. Luis Enrique's reign would end in disgrace. Messi's dominance was fading, and the era that defined modern football, tiki-taka, dominance, and perfection, had finally collapsed under its own weight. But somewhere inside the Camp Nou, a quiet rebellion began. Luis Enrique, so often criticized for his stubbornness, refused to surrender. He called his players into a closed-door meeting. Reporters said his message was short, defiant, and absurdly simple. If they can score 4, we can score more. Those words, born out of desperation, became scripture. In training, he switched from his usual 4-3-3 to a 3-4-3, a radical, attacking shape that looked suicidal on paper but offered freedom in spirit. But it wasn't just that they needed more than 4 goals. They needed enough without actually conceding against the team that had just put 4 past them. So, beyond the tactics, Luis Enrique needed to motivate his team. He told Neymar to play with rage, to stop trying to be liked and start trying to destroy. He told Messi to drift where he pleased, to trust instinct over instruction, and he told his defenders, forget fear, go forward. For once, even the dressing room critics fell silent, because deep down, they all knew if this really was the end, they wanted to go out fighting. Outside, Barcelona's city streets buzzed with hopeless hope. Fans queued for tickets, as if clinging to faith itself. One supporter told the cameras, "We just want to believe one last time." And that night, March 8, 2017, belief filled every inch of the Camp Nou. 98,000 fans packed the stands, chanting, waving flags, screaming like their voices alone could bend fate. Luis Enrique stood in the tunnel, arms folded, whispering the same words he'd been repeating for weeks: "We need 6 goals." Messi looked calm, Neymar restless, Suarez fire in his eyes. When the Champions League anthem hit, it wasn't just another match, it was a resurrection attempt. Commentators reminded viewers again and again, no one has ever done this before, and maybe that's why it mattered so much. Because somewhere, deep inside the soul of football, every fan, even those who hated Barcelona, wanted to see if the impossible could still exist. The whistle blew, and for the first time in months, Barcelona didn't look scared, they looked possessed. From the first whistle, Barcelona didn't play football, they attacked fate. They chased every loose ball like it had insulted their families. It was clear Barcelona weren't going to slowly ease into the second leg, they stormed it. From the opening minute, they hunted in packs. Neymar pressed like a man possessed, sliding into tackles, snapping at heels. Suarez charged after every cross like it was personal. and Messi, silent, focused, almost cold, floated through the chaos like a conductor among noise. It took just 3 minutes. Rafinha's cross, a scramble, and Suarez rose above everyone. Header, goal, 1-0. The Camp Nou exploded. Not a cheer, but a roar that felt ancient, primal, the kind that makes your spine shake. You could see it instantly. PSG weren't ready for this. The intensity, the rage, the sound, they were drowning in it. Every time Barcelona touched the ball, it felt like the pitch tilted toward Kevin Trapp's goal. Neymar was toying with defenders, Iniesta gliding past blue shirts with silk and steel in every touch. And then, the second goal came in the 40th minute. Neymar sprinted down the left, twisting Meunier inside out. His cross met Iniesta, who flicked it with his heel toward goal. The ball ricocheted off Kurzawa own goal, 2-0. The stadium became a living organism. You could hear nothing but belief and prayer colliding in the air. Luis Enrique stood on the sideline, shouting instructions no one could hear. Inside, he was thinking the same thing as everyone else. It's happening. At half-time, even the most cynical fans started to believe. Barcelona needed 2 more to force extra time, 3 to qualify. It was ridiculous, and yet suddenly, the second half began like a fever dream. 5 minutes in, Neymar darted into the box, tripped, and a penalty was awarded. All eyes turned to Messi. He didn't smile. He didn't look up. He just took a breath and sent the ball with a thunderous shot past the keeper. 3-0, pandemonium. On the bench, players screamed. Piqué banged his fists against the barrier. Even the commentators lost composure. Is this real? Are we actually watching this? But football is cruel. It gives you everything. Then, tests, if you can keep it. Because just when Barcelona had PSG on the ropes, it happened. A long ball forward, a rare lapse at the back. Cavani sneaks in behind. Bang, top corner. 3-1 on aggregate. The entire Camp Nou froze. It wasn't just a goal, it was heartbreak, concentrated. You could see it on Messi's face, the slow exhale, the look of disbelief. On the touchline, Luis Enrique stared at the grass, motionless. And up in the stands, 98,000 fans stood in silence, realizing what that one goal meant. Now they needed 3 more, with less than 30 minutes left. Neymar's head dropped. For a brief second, so did Barcelona's spirit. The dream that had burned for weeks seemed to fade in an instant, and PSG, smug, confident, started to believe they'd survived. They started to waste time, mock the crowd, smile again. But somewhere deep inside Neymar, something flipped. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was anger, or maybe he just refused to let history bury him quietly. Because from that moment on, the match stopped being a game. It became a war. And in the next 7 minutes of football, the world would witness something that looked less like sport and more like a miracle. By the 87th minute, the Camp Nou had gone quiet. Not because the fans stopped believing, but because every face in the stands told the same story. Hope hanging by a thread, fear creeping in from the corners. Cavani's goal had shattered the momentum. Barcelona were still throwing everything forward. Crosses, corners, chaos, but nothing was landing. Messi looked drained, Suarez limped, and even the eternal Iniesta seemed to move with exhaustion rather than grace. On the touchline, Luis Enrique clenched his jaw, refusing to look at the clock. He knew it was almost over. Even Messi looked defeated. Suarez's run slowed. The PSG players smirked, passing the ball around like the job was done. But Neymar didn't stop. From the moment PSG let their guard down, Neymar switched the entire game on its head. He fought like a man who refused to read the script. He was fouled, tackled, shoved, and he kept coming. He was angry, furious, brilliant. Every touch carried defiance. As the clock hit 87 minutes, most fans were already crying. The chants had quieted, people were starting to leave, and then everything changed. Minute 88th. A foul on Neymar. Suddenly, Barcelona had a free kick just outside the box. 30 yards. The kind of distance where reason says, cross it, not shoot. But Neymar didn't deal in reasons. He stood over the ball, eyes locked on Trapp, heart pounding like war drums. For a moment, everything stopped. The crowd, the noise, the world. Then, he struck it. The ball flew as if guided by faith itself. It bent over the wall, dipped under the bar, and exploded into the top corner. 4-1. The Camp Nou erupted. Fans fell to their knees. Flags flew into the sky. Commentators screamed themselves hoarse. But Neymar didn't celebrate. He didn't smile. He grabbed the ball, sprinted back to the halfway line, and pointed forward, one word on his lips. Again. The The referee restarted play. PSG were shaken, unsure whether to defend or delay. Verratti gestured wildly. Thiago Silva shouted orders, but no one followed. And then, in the 90th minute, the storm hit again. Suarez chased a lost ball, crashed into Marquinhos, and fell. Penalty. The PSG players surrounded the referee. They screamed, begged, and cursed. It didn't matter. The decision stood. This time, once again, it wasn't Messi or Suarez who stepped up. It was Neymar who took it himself. 91st minutes. He placed the ball, wiped the sweat from his forehead, looked up once, and buried it. 5-1. The stadium collapsed into pandemonium. People screamed until their voices broke. Luis Enrique threw his arms in the air, eyes wide, laughing in disbelief. Now, they were one goal away. One goal from immortality. 5 minutes of added time went up. It might as well have been 5 seconds, because Barcelona threw everyone forward. Even Ter Stegen sprinted to the PSG half. Cross after cross, blocked. Pass after pass, cleared. The clock ticked. Then a long ball from Neymar. It sailed through the Paris defense, falling like a gift from the heavens. Sergi Roberto darted in between defenders. One touch, a stretch, a flick, goal. 6-1. For a split second, there was silence, disbelief so heavy it muted reality. Pure chaos. Camp Nou was shaking. The players were in tears. Messi raised his fists to the sky. Neymar collapsed on the grass, sobbing. Ter Stegen sprinted the full length of the pitch to join the pile of bodies screaming in delirium. Luis Enrique turned to his bench, half laughing, half crying. He whispered, "We did it. We actually did it." The scoreboard didn't look real. Barcelona 6, 1 PSG, 6-5 on aggregate. Commentators lost their minds. Unbelievable. History rewritten. This isn't football, this is mythology. In Paris, silence. In Barcelona, resurrection. And in the middle of it all, Neymar. Not Messi, not Suarez, Neymar. In 7 minutes, he had gone from sidekick to savior, from promise to legend. That night, he stopped being just a superstar and became a god in the Camp Nou. When the final whistle blew, Barcelona didn't just win a football match, they broke the sport's logic. For a moment, the entire world froze. PSG players collapsed, staring into the grass like they'd just woken up from a nightmare. Luis Suarez fell to his knees, sobbing. Neymar was in tears, surrounded by cameras and chaos. Messi stood on the advertising board, arms raised to the heavens, framed by a blizzard of red and blue confetti, a painting more than a picture. It wasn't just victory, it was resurrection, which is now known as La Remontada, the comeback, a word that would echo far beyond the Camp Nou. Within hours, headlines flooded every corner of the globe. The greatest comeback in football history. Football rewritten, miracle in Barcelona. Social media melted, clips hit hundreds of millions of views. Even rival fans, who had spent years mocking Barcelona, admitted they had witnessed something supernatural. And deep down, every football fan felt the same thing. If this was possible, then what else could be? It wasn't just about goals anymore, it was about belief. Barcelona hadn't just scored 6, they had bent destiny to their will. But in the dressing room, amid the chaos, Neymar sat quietly in the corner, head buried in a towel. To the world, he was the hero. But to him, something had changed. The comeback that made him immortal also made him restless. He had been the architect, the savior, the man who dragged Barcelona from the ashes. And yet, when the world looked back, most of the glory went to Messi. In the weeks that followed, Neymar's confidence turned to conflict. Whispers spread he wanted to be the man, not the partner. And where better to prove that than Paris, the very city he had destroyed. 6 months later, PSG, humiliated, broken, desperate to reclaim pride, came knocking. €222 million. The biggest transfer in history. The irony? Barcelona's greatest night had inspired the very move that would tear them apart. La Remontada didn't just rewrite football history, it rewrote football's economy. PSG became obsessed with buying revenge. Clubs started believing that with enough money, enough ambition, anything was possible. The belief that night birthed a new football era, one powered by chaos, by shock, by the promise that no lead was ever safe. Liverpool's 4-0 against Barcelona in 2019, Roma's 3-0 in 2018, even Real Madrid's Champions League miracle run in 2022. All of them carried the same DNA, the belief that nothing is over until the final whistle. That's what La Remontada did. It killed certainty. It made football eternal again. But every miracle comes with a curse, because when everything becomes possible, nothing feels sacred. Barcelona never regained that same magic. Luis Enrique left. Neymar left. The empire cracked under the weight of its own miracle. Still, that night lives on, not as a game, but as a message. For every team trailing 4-0, for every player counted out, for every fan who refuses to leave early. Because March 8, 2017 proved one thing above all: football isn't played on grass, it's played in belief. And when belief burns hot enough, it can turn 0.3% chances into immortal stories.